I have parents who are both entrepreneurs. And so I definitely saw months and years where things were harder. And I saw years where things were up. And, one of the things I really appreciate about my parents is they were never shy about, like, we don't got it. My mom had breast cancer at some point and the show kept going. Like the house kept running. Everything was, kept moving as
smooth,
normal.
Yeah.
And that was because he really stepped in. He was giving us a bath. He was doing all these things. You can have it all, but you have to define what that means. Like when I say that I have it all, it's not because I'm doing it all. Like I'm definitely not trying to be everything for everyone.
Hello and welcome back to the show. If you're new here, I'm Sheen, your host, and this is the Dream Girl podcast. I'm super excited to introduce you to today's guest. She is super impressive. She's only 28 years old. She is a multi-8-figure entrepreneur. She's redefining what luxury travels look like. She's a tech founder. She's a mother. She is doing everything. And I'm super excited to introduce you to Chidi. Hi, Chidi.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, this has been in the making for a while.
Yes.
We tried.
We really tried. Busy schedules, but I'm so glad that we're finally here.
Of course. Listen, we have so much to cover. So I'm going to try and think about the best way to start. And I think for right now, everyone under the sun knows that Chidi is all about building wealth and, building businesses around the world, which we love to see. But I want to ask you, how does it feel right now? Where do you think you are on your journey of building wealth? At what phase are you?
So I think for me, the point that I'm at with my wealth journey is really being intentional about creating wealth that lasts. And so, that's even in business. Like, am I building a business that's going to be around for the next 50 years, 100 years? Am I investing in things that I understand and that, will give me those long-term returns? So it's really just being intentional with my time, because I feel like in my 20s, I've been doing a lot of different things, moving around, and not everything yields the best results. And so now I'm like, okay, if I'm going to put my time into something, I really want it to be a legacy, business or something that leaves a lasting impression.
And I don't know if you've seen this thing where it tells you the different levels of being rich, where it tells you the first level is when you're in the supermarket and you stop looking at prices before you pick something. Second one is when you're buying an air ticket and you stop looking. And I forgot what the third one is. But how has your relationship with wealth or with even being rich, how has that changed your relationship with money?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is that I don't think I've ever truly thought about money. Like, I've never had money on my mind. I know it sounds so odd to say, but I've not been the type of person that's like checking my bank account like, oh my God, I have this much money. And I think it's also because the pace at which my businesses have been moving. And, sometimes you stop and you look back and you're like, wow, how did I get from, 100K to 1 million to 10 million, right? I don't think you fully grasp that as you are in the moment and in that journey. And so, with money, I've always seen money as something that comes and goes. And I've always seen money as something that I can have because I'm putting in the work. Like, I'm never scared to lose money because I know how I got there in the first place, And so for me, I'm not like a huge spender, but I am someone like I spend a lot on the things that I care about. So for example, when it comes to a good vacay, I will drop a good 6 figures on that. When it comes to things that I really care about, but then other things I don't spend on those things. I'm very conservative in my day-to-day life and then just how I spend, in an everyday. So, I've learned how to make money work for me in terms of making my life better. And that's where I've seen the best returns. And then I've also just not made money the center of my world, because what matters more to me is like the impact that I'm making and how excited I am to make the money. I think I enjoy the making of the money and the process of building something that is valuable, and then you get money as a byproduct.
I love that. Okay, so many things to unpack from here. The first thing I like is when you mentioned going from 100K to 1 million to 10 million.
Yeah.
And as they say, more money, more problems, right?
Yes.
Also, it's like, that's why, because you might think that, I'm making so much more money, but your expenses have also increased.
Right.
The capacity of what you need to do has also increased. So definitely I understand you on that. But I love how you touched upon the mindset that you have around money, how you believed that you will make money because you're working hard for it and that money comes and goes. And I think as an entrepreneur, this is something I had to learn, coming from like a very set, structured corporate job. You're used to getting a salary and you're going to get this much money this month. You can plan your life. And when I jumped to being an entrepreneur, you're like, oh, certain months there's no money. Where's my money? Where's my salary?
Right.
And then certain months you make a lot more money.
Exactly.
So it's, again, money comes and goes and you have to spend to make money, right?
Yeah.
But where did your money mindset come from? Is it from your childhood?
Yeah, I definitely think my childhood has played a huge part. I have parents who are both entrepreneurs. And so I definitely saw months and years where things were harder. And I saw years where things were up. And, one of the things I really appreciate about my parents is they were never shy about, like, we don't got it right now. Or, they were never shy about what it takes to really build a successful business. And we had a lot of very open, even at a young age. I remember my dad, when he was building his beverage company, he would loop us in, like we would brainstorm like names for the company and, these flavors. And so we've always had those conversations. But more importantly, we've always had conversation around the fact that ultimately the way to make money is by taking risks and betting on yourself. And I think I've had a good example in seeing that from my parents. And so I always knew that, if I lose something today, I know there's a way to make it back. I've seen the ups and downs. And so that's where that mindset has come to me.
I love that because it's not the end of the road. You know that, this is a whole process.
Yeah.
But again, I guess when it comes to entrepreneurship, would you say that it gave you an edge having been around both your parents who were entrepreneurs? Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, in terms of that edge, because I get a lot of like people saying like, oh, you have parents who are, entrepreneurs and so on. It does help in terms of the risk factor of you've seen people who are confident to bet on themselves. And so that's definitely something that has helped me because I know like no matter what, the life that I want and the freedom that I want can come from entrepreneurship because I've seen my parents kind of have that same flexibility and freedom. I've also seen them work super hard. And then at the same time, I think just having good parents where, it's parents where you can come. Like I always say to myself, if I lose everything today, I'm just going to go home. Like, you know what I mean?
That.
Like, I'm just going to go home, sleep on the couch and, and it's not because again, like, people, especially people try to discredit women like, oh, where does the wealth come from? Is it a rich husband? Is it wealthy parents? Is it this? Is it that? And, I've never been externally funded. I've never had to take money from anyone because I've been able to kind of rapidly build my businesses. But I do understand also that I have a privilege in having a really great family structure that I know like if I hit rock bottom, I have a place in this world. Like I'm not defined by how much I make. And I think that has always been my reassurance to make big bets because I know like if I fall, I'm not falling too hard. And I want to be able to have that and do that for my kids where they know like, hey, listen, worst comes to worst, you have that family structure behind you to kind of cheer you on. Yeah.
I love that. And that's so beautiful. Actually somebody asked me this question on a podcast recently being like, after you did all these pivots, how was your family? Were they supportive about it? And I was like, I never thought about it.
Yeah.
But because my parents have always been super supportive throughout.
Yes.
And that peace of mind you have when you know that these people are backing you.
Exactly.
Right? Whatever happens, I have somewhere to go, as you said. You have home. And I think it's very underrated.
It's so underrated.
Right?
It's a form of privilege, because people always think about, and I said this previously, and I always try to talk about it. Like, we always talk about generational wealth, and people always feel like it's money, it's money, it's money. It's not only money. It's support. It's a family structure that cares, and knowing that you have some sort of like backing. And I think that is just like the level of peace of mind that you get. It's unmatched. So that is a form of wealth, is like not having to stress out or not having to like feel like I have to prove at all costs that I can make this happen because I know that everyone's looking at me in a certain way. And so that it's definitely a privilege, honestly.
Yeah, and we're very lucky.
Yeah,
as you said, privileged, right, to be in that place. But, also now going back to the entrepreneurial mindset, one question I always get asked, and I'm going to ask you now is, do you feel like anybody can be an entrepreneur? Before we get to the rest of the episode, I just wanted to let you know that we have opened Dubai's only co-working space and podcast studio under one roof. We have this set and this set for you to choose from and customize. You can work from here, or here, or here, or host your event here or here. Welcome to the Pen by Marina Pearl. You can book using the link in the description box below.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I don't. Unfortunately, I don't think everyone should want to be an entrepreneur. I think obviously in the society that we live in, it's more glamorized. But at the same time, I think that you should want to solve problems. And if solving that problem puts you in the realm of entrepreneurship, then great. But sometimes, the best people are entrepreneurs, right? Like you can build with someone, right? It's not, you don't necessarily have to be the founder, the CEO, the titles, the photo shoots and everything that, makes entrepreneurship look so glamorous. I think that certain people have certain skills that make them better suited to play the entrepreneurship game. And I don't think everyone should want to have all of the skills, like we should just figure out what our purpose is. And I kind of felt like, I felt very early on as a kid, like I already knew like I was going to be a business owner. Like in my head, I already knew like that was the life that I wanted. I don't know why, but I knew that I wanted to start a business. I knew that I just had these big, bold dreams. I just didn't know the avenue in terms of the business that I would start. But from a young age, I feel like I was always getting into one thing or the other. I used to write exam notes for people.
You started your business early.
Yes, I used to sell. So I would take notes in class and I would sell them to people to help them prepare for exams. I used to do that. So many different things that I would do on the side. I used to do these bedazzled bags and sell them. So from a young age, I just really felt moved towards that. But in that journey, I've also recognized there's a place for everyone, and it's just mostly about what is your specific purpose. And then that will direct you in terms of the path that you should go.
Yeah, I agree. I also always say the same. I don't think everyone should be an entrepreneur, right? And I think a lot of people are unhappy in their workplace and they assume that the solution is to become an entrepreneur. Because there's that misconception that I don't want a 9-to-5 as an entrepreneur. I can do whatever I want and I will work less.
Oh no.
Girl, I've never worked this much in my life.
Exactly. It's nonstop. And you know what the difference is for me is when I worked a 9-to-5, I worked as a business analyst and, in New York. And when you get home, in most cases, you switch off.
Yes.
I don't think my brain has switched off in 6 years. I don't think I've had a day in the last 6 years where I have truly not had to work, to think about work, to wake up to something on my mind, and it's not easy in that sense, right? You're always moving, you're always accountable. And honestly, a lot of times when I feel like I can sit back, there's always something. There's never a moment where you can just be like, oh yeah, entrepreneurship is a baby and it's a baby that you're tied to and it's a baby that you have to keep feeding, for it to stay alive. And so that's something that I've learned is you have to just be fully down for the journey. There's no finish line.
No, there isn't. Yeah. And I always describe it as it's almost like you're a plumber.
Yeah.
Every day there's a new leak.
Oh, yes.
Every day there's a new leak and you're like, I don't even know how to fix this one. The tube is there, but let's see. But it is very challenging. And I'm really happy that you also talk about the not switching off at all. I went home for 5 days to Mauritius and I said, I just want one day where I don't open my laptop.
Girl.
Okay? Just
and
one day.
And did you do it?
Every single day I was there okay, let me reply to this. Oh, this came through. And you know that if you don't do it, you're the one who's going to pay for it later.
Exactly. So that's the thing is you can plan that okay, I'm going on vacation and I'm going to do this. But ultimately, and it also comes down to loving what you do.
Of course.
Because the thing is, and that's where it's so hard sometimes because it's I love what I do. I love my businesses. And so you're switched on to it,
Of course.
And then it just becomes like you become consumed with it, you know? And so I always say, like, I started a business to travel, and then, you know, where was the travel? Because it became all logistics, finance, operations, you know?
Hiring.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
So it's like the travel. And I quickly realized that if I wanted to scale this business to, you know, 50 million or wherever it's going to be, like, I actually couldn't do much traveling. I had to hunker down. That's also part of why I moved to Dubai. I had to hunker down. I had to get my operations, my systems in place. And that required stability, structure, timing. And so I realized, like, okay, travel business and my clients are having an amazing time, but I'm here behind a desk. And that's entrepreneurship. That's the sacrifice.
Of course, of course. And of course, we know, as you said, we love what we do, which is why sometimes it almost doesn't feel like work. And I also went on a holiday with my friends. They're all entrepreneurs. And we're all like, you know, it's fine. You know, look at us being able to travel middle of the week. I took this video. Everyone is on a call.
Oh my God!
We are in the Uber. Everyone is like, one is yelling at their team. One is being like, the client is unhappy. Someone else is on the laptop. I was like, yeah, this is entrepreneur.
Yeah, this
but
is
you know what?
entrepreneurship.
We're able to be on holiday.
Exactly. We have the freedom.
The freedom of time is what they say, right?
That's the dream that we sell ourselves.
That's the dream. But listen, the other thing, Chidi, for you is so impressive how quickly you grew your businesses. You're only 28. And of course, I know it's still just the beginning of the journey.
Yes.
But everything grew very quickly. Did you start with YouTube, or did you start the businesses first and then went to YouTube?
So I actually started my businesses first. But before that, I was posting a lot on Instagram. And, you know, I was working girl in New York City, college student. Well, prior to that, college student. I was studying at NYU. And I just love to travel. And so whenever I would have the time, I would save up any money that I have and I would go on a trip. And so, for example, if I'm going on a trip, I'll Airbnb my apartment, then I know I have some money coming in, and then I can use that money for my trip. I used to do a lot of like website development, so creating websites and blogs for people. And so that's how I would make some money, use that to go on a trip. I also did a lot of like these paid studies where like they pay you for your opinion. So at some point as a college student, I was actually like bringing in a good amount of money. I was, because I was a contractor. I was managing people's socials. I was making the websites. And so I would save my money and then I would go spend it on travel. And I just had this idea in my mind that once I graduated, that my life would almost be over, because I was just like, okay, I'm going to be stuck behind a desk and I'm not going to have vacation time. And so I was like, let me do as much as I can right now. I almost felt like I had a clock. And so naturally I started traveling and sharing those experiences, sharing me skipping the Miami spring break and going to Peru and, you know, like going to Thailand. So I really was sharing that journey. And through that, I built a bit of a following. I have not a lot of followers. I think at the time it was like 20K followers or so on. Yeah. But it was just women who were so supportive and they loved the journey and the experiences. And then I also started blogging and, you know, just sharing my tips online and so on. And then from there, I started my business. And so, you know, it started as not a business, just sharing the travel tips and then converting that into experiences for people where, you know, bringing women together, like-minded women who wanted to travel the world and experience luxury. And, you know, that was where we started, and then grew into, you know, full service travel company, travel community, and so on. And now we're building hotels. So it's just so crazy, you know, the transition. And yes, it has been quick as well.
It has been incredibly quick. You know, the first time I saw your video, which was before Lamade mentioned you to me, it was when you showed us the house in Bali.
Yes.
Oh my God. I remember watching it and being like, this is crazy. I was like, this is beautiful. And I think that video is one of probably your most watched one, right?
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah. But what prompted the idea? Why Bali?
Yeah. So Bali was really the beginning for me of my business. I started the business. I renegotiated my contract with my company so that I could work remotely. And the first thing I did once they approved it is I packed up my apartment in New York in 2 weeks and I moved to Bali. And I remember I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my parents, nothing.
Oh my God.
And I remember being in Bali with the rice fields at the back, and I FaceTimed my dad and I was like, I'm in Bali. And, so that was the beginning of my business. And we really made Bali like a huge destination. Till date, we bring in millions of dollars every year into Bali. We work with locals and so on. So by the end of that first year of building my business, I had been moving around a lot, trying to find the right places to stay. I was looking at how much I was paying and I was like, you know what? Like, I would be better off just buying my own property or building. And that's where that journey went. And so I started looking at land. Again, this is me at 23, by the way. I started looking at land and I found this beautiful piece of land in front of the rice fields. And I was like, I'm gonna build my own house. Again, like 1 year into my time in this country.
That's madness.
Not knowing the language or anything. And just, I'm gonna build my own house. And so that's kind of where that journey started.
Okay, so what I'm getting from all of this is that you love risk.
Yeah.
But do you do it a little bit scared, or are you not scared at all?
No, I think there's always an element of, oh my gosh, the fear.
Right.
There's always an element of that. But I would also say that I am someone who is, I am truly a bold risk taker. At the same time, I take calculated risks.
Right.
Like I risk things and I'm comfortable to start again if I need to. And so that's always been my mindset of like, I don't ask myself like, oh, what's the worst that could happen and I'm going to lose it. I just like, what is the best thing that could come out of this decision? And I always think about things in that context of like leaving my job, for example. What is the best thing that could happen? Building a house, what's the best thing? So I'm always thinking of that. And I get so excited about everything that could happen by making a decision that it kind of blocks out the noise of the fear. And I think when you trust yourself enough and as you make bets on yourself and they start to pay off and you get better at it and like you get more confident. And I think building that confidence. I also spent a lot of time solo traveling when I was, early 20s. And I think that also really helped me just trust myself. And it's helped me build a level of confidence. I always say like people should solo travel. Because for me, I built up so much confidence in myself where like I trust myself to navigate difficult situations. I trust myself to like spark up conversations with people and so on. And so, yeah, like when I make like bold decisions, I'm like, yeah, I got you. I got myself.
You have proof of concept, right?
Exactly.
You know in the past it worked. So you can trust your gut almost at this point.
Exactly.
But I love that because I think a lot of people struggle with taking risk because the fear is there. And I really like that you said you think about how good it can be rather than how bad it can be. And even us, for example, with this space, when we were making the decision of this space, there was so much fear about it being like, it's a big bet that we're taking. But at the same time, we thought, how amazing could it be? And we still took the leap of faith. But you mentioned taking calculated risks, right? And I really like that because even me, when I quit my job, I sat down and did this whole financial exercise, right? I was like, if I don't earn any money for the next 6 months, how much money do I need to maintain my lifestyle? Do I have that pot of money? Yes, then definitely take the jump. But I think people think that probably looking at your lifestyle and looking at mine, that they just take risks because they're not scared. And that's what I'm trying to demystify. So tell us, how do you calculate your risk before you make a decision?
Yeah, I think a big part of taking risks for a lot of people, the financial side is one, right? And for me, like you said, and what you did is exactly what I did, is I look at the numbers and I say, do the numbers support what I'm trying to do? Sometimes it doesn't. And you might still just be like, hey, you know what? I'll make it work. But I think there's a level of security that you have to have financially to be able to take risks.
Right.
And I always say, like, I don't like making decisions on an empty stomach, right? Like, you don't want to be that person, even especially in business, right? The people who make decisions from a place of lack and scarcity, they make the worst decisions. And so if you're starting a business, you're taking a bet on yourself, if you want to truly go all in, you need some sort of cushion room. And so for me, part of that was I stayed in my job for a whole year. The first full year of running my business full time, I was also working full time. And that really gave me a lot of financial security where I could, I knew that the bases were covered. I also knew that I was saving because I had moved to Bali. And part of moving to Bali was cutting down my expenses. New York, of course, is very expensive. So I cut my expenses in half. by living in Bali. I was able to save. I still worked my job. And again, it was, I'm going to take a risk on this business, but it's still a new business, right? I want to validate my idea and then I can go all in. And so that was my version of a calculated risk, was crunching the numbers, knowing how much I need to be comfortable. And comfortable means really comfortable. Like, you don't want to be, when I say comfortable, I don't mean like you need to have everything, but you need a level of stability that allows you to make good decisions.
Correct.
And so I think of, what is that number? What is that baseline number that will allow me the peace of mind to go all in and to be happy and confident in the things that I'm doing? And that's the calculated risk. There's also the risk of, when I think about making calculated risk, about like, how much time am I losing to not doing this thing? Because a lot of times we spend so much time waiting to make that decision. And I think, there's something about momentum in life, in business. And sometimes, even when you've calculated the costs, that momentum pulls you in anyways. And you have to be willing and ready to go for it. Because I think the most important thing, in life is capturing the momentum, going all in. And that's ultimately, I think, what makes you really successful. Like, even with business is all about timing, right? You can build an amazing business and it's just out of touch and out of time, right? And so if you sit on your idea for too long, you lose that momentum and you wonder why like things don't end up working out. It's because you're out of time. Like, it was 2 years ago. That's why, like, when you have that feeling, when you have that idea, move with speed. Like, if me and you sit today and we say, hey, like, let's do this thing, and I truly believe in it. Tomorrow I'll have a prototype. Next week we're up and running. By the end of the month, we will have one customer. Even if they're not happy, then I know why they're not happy, and I'm iterating on it. So it's a moving with speed and capitalizing on the momentum that you feel, So yeah.
You know what? That makes a lot of sense. It reflects your journey as well, right? This is why everything has been quick for you, because you capitalize on the momentum. And this reminded me, Lamide and I, before we started this, we had a different idea for a different business.
Yeah.
You're going to laugh. It took us 6 weeks to do one deck. And because neither of us wanted it, there was no momentum and we were kind of like dragging our feet in it. And I remember Lamide having this conversation with me, being like, this is really taking too long. And I don't know if the problem is we don't want it or it's something is wrong.
Right.
And it wasn't the right idea. And then this one, as soon as it happened, bam, bam, bam. Everyone was shocked when we were telling people we're opening. They're like, oh, 2026. Well, I know, next month.
No, when I saw the announcement and then I saw the opening, I was like, what? That was quick.
Yeah.
And then I came to the space, I'm like, wow. Like, again, it's that, like you said, it's that like energy when you know that it's the right time. And there's so many things that happen because you innately, you feel it. You feel a pull. Like, I remember being at my workplace when I was, ready to make that transition, and I just couldn't sit still. And I started to feel like, like in my head, like, maybe I'm bigger than the program here, because this is not for me anymore, And I think life starts to pull you closer to that direction, and you have to be willing to listen to that and willing to try,
Yeah. And another thing I really like, Chidi, is I think a lot of us can look at you today and think, wow, she just, struggled. She found the right business and she kept making money quickly. But I like how you talked about when you were in university, you had so many side hustles to make money. When you were traveling, you would Airbnb. And then even you thought of ways to reduce your costs, and you still had a main job to fund everything. So it's like from the beginning, you had a very clear plan, and you didn't know exactly what it would be, but you were trying to make it work for you. And that came with a lot of sacrifices along the way. And same for me when I was working as a consultant and I hated it. And I was like, no, but this is currently giving me money that I can save to do something else.
Exactly.
And I would work 18 hours a day. And during the week, I would be dying. But Saturday would be my content day. I would sit down, get ready in the morning, slap my face with makeup, script, film, edit, all of Saturday. So I had a 6 days work instead of 5. But because I knew this is my ticket out of this, right? So you put in the effort for that.
Exactly.
But what else? Obviously, we've discovered your money mindset. We've discovered how you approach life in terms of calculated risk, being brave. But what else do you think really contributed to the accelerated growth of your business? Hey dreamers, quick pause from the convo. If you are wondering what the Dreamers Digest is, it's my exclusive online community where I share behind the scenes goodies, lessons from building this podcast, and all the juicy stuff that never makes it to the final cut. If you're not in it yet, check the link in the show notes and come join us. It's 100% free. Also, shocking fact, 89% of you watching this on YouTube right now are not even subscribed. Wild, right? So if that's you, go ahead and hit that button. It would mean the world to me. And now, super exciting news. We launched the Podcast Academy. This is where I've poured everything I've learned from taking this show to 150 million views and turning it into a real business. It's 10 powerful modules packed with tools to help you launch, grow, and actually monetize your podcast. You'll even get the chance to submit your episode for personal feedback from me and my team. If you've been thinking about starting a show or scaling the one you already have, this is your sign. Click the link in the description box below to learn more. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think, another factor to how fast my business has grown, it has to be the community that we built in building that business. And so with Lux Tribes, really, again, like we never spent money on advertising. It was our community. And when I say community, our customers really doubling down on who am I selling to? What do they want? What are their motivations? Speaking to them, and even with Ready Hub. So I'm a founder of a tech company, and I call my customers. I make it a thing to call people. Wow. How are you doing? How's the app going? What would you like to see on that? I want to know. I want to speak. And so one of the things that I think is important is never losing touch, because we, as founders, we have so many things going on. Don't lose touch of your customers and be willing to move with your customers, because, trends come and go, right? Seasons come and go for your customers. And if you're not adaptable, you're going to be out of business. And so I'm always looking at how can I be at the forefront of what is relevant to my customer? And then on top of that, how can I design a business that is flexible and agile enough to move with the customers and what they're looking for? And so that has been a big factor, is that one, we are a community-driven business. And when I say community-driven business, what I mean is that we prioritize our customer experience. We prioritize getting to know our customers. We design our products and our services around what is relevant to them. And then on top of that, the systems that go with our business, I think, is what has really helped Lux Tribes grow, Ready Hub grow, and so on, is really taking time. And that's why I said earlier that I had to really sit down and think about, who am I hiring? What does our back end look like? And so on. Design systems behind the business that can build a longevity business, right? And that has been something that has helped us grow, because I realized I don't want a business that if I step out today, I'm not making any money. What does that look like? And it took years to get to that point. And I remember last year I went on maternity leave, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is building up to that maternity leave. It just felt like, what's going to happen? And me being able to unplug for a few months was a testament for me of we're in the right direction, right? The business is still going. We have the right people in place. And again, those are the things that have helped, my businesses grow. Community, customer-centric, having the values of placing your customer first, and then building the systems. And that's what has kept us going till today.
While you're saying this, all I'm thinking about is I need to be more in touch with my audience. I was like, that's so true, because again, when you're small, you are it's very interactive.
Exactly.
And then the more you grow, you have more responsibility. And then you're correct, you lose touch.
You lose touch
with your customer, the people you are serving. Yes.
It's okay, I have a customer support. I always used to say, till today, in all of my businesses, I still go check those DMs. I am still checking those emails. I'm still looking and saying, why is it that people, and I asked the team, someone said that, they had difficulty in this segment of the website. Why is that? And I go check it for myself, and it's really just that foot on the ground, looking from the customer's perspective. Because the moment you start to get too removed, you as a founder, you're meant to steer the ship.
Correct.
And once you get too removed, you're not steering
What are
the
you
ship.
steering?
Exactly. And so, and I don't like relying on information from others of like, oh, this is what customers want. I want to also know that so that when we're having conversations, I can be in touch with that reality.
Yeah, you need to keep a hand on the pulse, right?
Exactly.
You need to know exactly what's going on. But Chidi, listening to everything you're talking about, I'm sure anyone else who's listening will be thinking, does this girl have more than 24 hours in a day?
Oh.
Because you have so much going on. And of course, you're also married, you have a baby.
Yes.
And so I guess the question I'll ask you is the classic question that we all get is, can women have it all?
Yeah, I do. I think that on this topic, it's a loaded question, right?
It is.
I think you can have it all, but you have to define what that means. Like when I say that I have it all, it's not because I'm doing it all. You know, like I'm definitely not trying to be everything for everyone. And that's where women get into, you know, this world where you end up creating so much stress for yourself.
Burning out.
Exactly. Because you want to be the best wife, the best mom, you want to be the best everything to everyone. And you're letting everyone else define what that looks like. For me, my version of being the best mom is quality time with my child, is being able to read books and being able to go on incredible vacations together, being able to, you know, teach him and, you know, that quality time. It's not necessarily cooking every meal. It's not necessarily like, you know, being the person who does everything, you know, in the household. And I want my kids to see me happy in my day-to-day life and fulfilled. And, you know, I want my kids to see me have some sense of purpose and excitement. Because I think also kids can see when you're not truly fulfilled in yourself. Exactly. And so I'm not trying to be everything, even as a wife. Like, you know, I have to define, you know, with my husband, what does being a great wife look like? My husband doesn't have these expectations that, oh, you need to do this, and that. Because again, he understands what I want to accomplish in life. I know what he wants to accomplish. And so we've defined what our marriage looks like and feels like, right? So I think women can have it all if you know what that all specifically means. And if it's not defined by what the world tells you a great woman is. Because the world will tell you a great woman looks a certain way. But when I look at that type of woman, I'm like, nah, she's suffering.
She's unwell.
She's unwell. She is suffering. Okay. And I don't want any parts of that. I don't want to endure anything. Like for me personally, I have no relation to endurance. Like I don't want anything to do with that. And so I want to design a life where I can outsource the things that are stressful so that I can show up and be present in the things that really give me joy and be present for the people that I care about. And for me, that is what having it all means.
Oh, wow. I love that. And, you know, I was telling you beforehand, for me, I always think that women can have it all, but probably not all at the same time, right? And if you do, you require help because it takes a whole village. It can't be one person that carries it all. And I love that you said I don't endure anything because we women have been fed this narrative, and I think we all carry it forward as well, that it's okay to suffer a little bit because that's just how it is.
Our mothers suffered, our grandmothers suffered. I'm like, okay.
You know, men don't understand, but we do.
Right.
We're the mothers. We carry the child, so, you know, we'll take the load. But it's the emotional load as well. It's not just about your physical time. It's also everything, the burden that you carry emotionally. And again, I love that you mentioned having systems and support in place, because one thing, especially in Dubai, I see there's so much judgment around working women having nannies.
Right.
And I saw this one girl posted that she just had a baby and there was a nanny in the background, and she got so much hate for it. And people were like, you don't even work. Why'd you have a nanny? But okay, she doesn't work doesn't mean she can't have time for herself.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, have you carried a child? Have you spent a whole day with a newborn? Like, I'll never forget when I had my child. Before I had my baby, I used to tell my husband, like, I don't need a nanny. I'm good. Like, you know, we're going to figure it out together.
I got this.
You know, I got this. Like, I'm good. And I realized how wrong I am because, you know, you need, especially if you have the money to outsource the things or to get the help that you need for peace of mind. Like, I had an incredible first year of motherhood, and I was working. I went back to work after like 3-4 months. And I had such an amazing first year of motherhood. And that was because I was rested. Like I got a night nurse and I was able to just rest and clear my mind a little bit. Like, okay, put the baby down.
Yeah.
Like relax a little bit. I could work. I could do all those things. And again, it is from a place of privilege, but if you can get help, even if it's my mom came and spent time with us, and that was also, an amazing privilege to have like, your family rally around you and come and help and support and all of that. But if you have the privilege to be able to get support, why not?
Why not?
There is no Olympic medal for suffering. I really want women, like I want to hold women's hand and say that there is no Olympic medal for, you get nothing. You absolutely get nothing. And one thing I realized that men do really well, no matter what, a man will have, kids and everything, they will prioritize themselves.
100%. It's just, they are priority number one.
Exactly. They will show up for themselves. They will go out. They will do their golf. They will, and we have to get comfortable with realizing that if me as a person, if I'm not okay, if I don't feel energized, I'm not showing up as my best self. Even as a mom, like, you're tired, you're exhausted, and you have to do everything in the household, like you're not showing up as number one. And that is a problem, Yeah,
you're not pouring from an empty jug, then what happens?
Exactly.
Like, that's not right. That's so cool. And you're so right. I think men, that's one thing we can definitely learn from men is how to be a little bit more selfish when it comes to yourself, right?
No, I'm shameless when it comes to that. I will always prioritize my well-being because I know how much, aside, motherhood is an aspect of who I am. And I just feel like I have so much that I want to do. I love being a mom and I love running businesses. I love working with people. I love traveling. I love investing. I love all these things. And I don't want to just be one thing. I still want to prioritize my family. How does that happen, right? It's through systems. It's through having nannies, and, having quality time, like defining what it means to have quality time with your child, where you're not doing it from a place of frustration. Because a lot of times you're pouring into your kids from a place of frustration. You've had a long day.
Right.
You're not really spending time with your child. You're just surviving the day. You're like waiting for them to go to bed. Like some days I'm like, okay, babe, go to bed.
Bedtime.
Bedtime.
1 hour earlier today.
Exactly. So it's not necessarily that you're doing it from a place of joy. And, not every day is going to be that. But you want to at least approach motherhood from a place of abundance and happiness. And I think that's the best way to parent.
And also, Chidi, you touched upon marriage, right? And I think it's so cool to see how you have such a supportive partner. And Mo's always around. He's doing the tech. He fixed the cameras for us. And it must make a huge difference to being able to have that life that you're talking about, that balance. But what advice do you have for women who are like you, who are, trying to achieve when it comes to choosing a life partner?
Oh, this is a big one. I think, a lot of successful women have fallen at the hands of terrible partnerships, terrible partners, terrible marriages. And the way that you're intentional about how you navigate your career, the way you are intentional about how you build your business and, your friendships and all these things, that's what got you to be successful. You have to be able to apply that same level of consideration to the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And so for me, some of the things that are really important is one, being with someone who has a level of ambition that is even more than what you are trying to build. And that was something that I really, really looked for in a partner. Because when I said to my husband at the beginning of the year, I'm going to build hotels. I want to build a hotel in Morocco. And then I want to build a hotel in Zanzibar. He's like, okay, let's make a plan. How do we make this happen, right?
I love that.
And so we then approach things together from a team mindset. I don't have to, but this is why. And
please,
if I had to fight for every idea that I had, I would be so burnt out. I would never go anywhere. And so having a partner who has that open mind and also has that ambition in their own life, and the ambition can't come from you. You can't be the one like, oh, babe, why don't you do this?
Why don't you do this?
No, I don't want to have
the cheerleader.
Exactly. I want to be with someone, and thankfully I am with someone who has their own businesses, their own career, their own purpose in life. And I think that is such a big thing. And it needs to be big, and it has to be as bold as what your purpose is. Because then you can approach the partnership from a place of rooting for each other. So that's why my husband will come in and be like, is the camera right? Is this? That's not his job. But he has enjoyed it so much. I remember during COVID, obviously I run a travel company, and during that time there was no travel. So I had no work to do. And he works in tech. So during that time, he was super busy because his whole entire company was going like to be more online. But at the end of his workday, he would edit my YouTube videos. And that was actually how I started YouTube. Was I kept complaining, I want to start a YouTube. And he went and took all my clips from Bali and made my first video. So again, it was just that level of, someone who wants to see you win. And that's the second thing, is the support needs to be loud. Like when you say you want to do something, the support needs to be loud. It needs to be fast. Like it's not like, I want to do this, and they're looking around like, okay, waiting for the proof points, because they believe in you, And I think that is how you have peace at home. Because I just don't think I would be able to build, these different businesses and do all these things if I didn't come home to a peaceful environment.
Correct.
And I think that's the main reason why you have to be so purposeful about who you are building with. Because if there's stress at home, if there's tension at home, it just affects your performance. So I actually think my biggest superpower is the life I have at home. Like,
Correct.
I really enjoy that. And that gives me the energy to keep going, So it's just so important.
Yeah. Basically find yourself a man that doesn't stress you out.
Find yourself a man that is so uncomfortable with you being stressed. Like, they are actively looking for ways to I just want my wife to chill.
Aww.
And it's something I actually saw from my dad, I have to say. So one of the biggest compliments I remember when I was getting married, my sister said, Mo reminds me so much of Dad. And I just felt like, thank God. And that was because my dad was my mom's peacekeeper. If there's anything my dad was in that house, he's like, don't stress your mom. What can I help you with? Like, your mom's busy. What do you need?
What do you need?
Exactly. So he was really that gatekeeper in her life. And, my mom had breast cancer at some point, and the show kept going. Like, the house kept running. Everything was, kept moving as
smooth,
normal.
Yeah.
And that was because he really stepped in. He was giving us a bath. He was doing all these things, on top of everything with school. And so even though that was a traumatizing time period for me, in terms of finding that out, it didn't feel like much had changed. And I think it's that having a partner that can really just balance things and keep things going even in your absence, and those are the things that I look for, in marriage, is just refusing to settle on that. I would rather just be single. Yeah. Like, if I can't have it, I just want to be single. I'm fine.
Yeah. That's good advice, because a lot of people end up settling, right? And you're like, that's not worth it. But also, you talked about the support needs to be loud. Yeah. Now, when we're talking about outside of a partnership, like your friends and your circle of people, did you see any difference as your success grew bigger?
Yeah.
Did you see difference in the support?
Yeah. I mean, again, the louder your success is, the louder people become about how much they were rooting for you from the beginning, and, the more messages and so on. Yeah. But, I'm grateful that I've not had too many friends to begin with. Okay. And so
keep your circle small.
Yeah, my circle's small. And again, when I say friends, I mean really close friendship. I have a lot of friends and acquaintances and so on, but close circle. And so everyone that I keep around me, they're doing just amazing things in their life. And I think when you have people around you that are so happy in their lives, they can be so much happier for you as well. And so, it does get louder, like the commentary, the congratulations. And that's why, in the beginning, when you're starting out, you don't hear a lot from people,
you clap for yourself.
You clap for yourself, and you have to be willing to keep going, because eventually people will see it. People will root for you. And even if they don't, you're still going to be rooting for yourself, and you have to be willing to root for yourself as long as you can.
And, it seems like you're juggling so much, so well.
Sometimes I don't know.
But do you think there's balance? Do you think work-life balance is possible? Is there any sort of balance?
So for me, I don't, balance in the traditional sense, no. I'm not going to like sugarcoat it and be like, oh, I have all this balanced life and I'm going to the gym. And sometimes I'm like, people go to the gym every day. They do all these things.
I'm like, when?
Exactly. Like, if I can get an extra lie-in in the morning, like, please let me have
10 minutes, I'll take it.
Exactly. So for me, it's the balance is what I define as balance, and it changes depending on the season I'm in. So for example, you know, I'm building a hotel right now in Morocco, also building one in Zanzibar. And so I'm on a flight every other week. Where's the balance in that? And I have to define that for myself, like understanding and recognizes there are seasons to build. There are seasons for rest. You have to try sometimes to kind of intertwine the two so that you don't burn out. But I don't pretend to have balance because I don't have any. Like, I'm the worst person to be like, girl, do you have balance? I don't have the balance. But I have a life that is abundant, and I try to pour into the different buckets of my life so that none of them is, you know, like dry,
depleted,
right?
yes.
Exactly. And I really try my best to figure out like the right structure. And then I always know what my priorities are, you know, family first, right? And so even if it means like, you know, a few hours of the day just for quality time, like I will do that, right? It might not be the entire day because I have work to do. So it's just finding those pockets in time to make time for the things that matter.
Absolutely. And life is made of seasons, right? For example, when you just had a baby, then that takes priority. When the business is starting, then that takes priority. And I think, you know, I listened to this podcast with Emma Greed.
Yes.
We love Emma,
I love
right?
her.
And she was talking about how if you want a big life, you can't want work-life balance.
I don't even like, it's not something I even think about.
Right? It's not like you're complaining I don't have work-life balance because you don't think about it. It's all, and she was talking about it's work-life integration, right? You just integrate both. Whenever one needs more attention, you give it to it and the other one. But now, Chidi, we've talked about all the beautiful things you've done, all the journey so far. But where we are today, what is one thing that you're still struggling with personally?
Really good question. I think it's about finding the right things to invest your time in. You know, it's as you have built a business, you know, I've built a business now and building multiple businesses actually. And you know, you want to do everything, or you think you want to do everything. And, you know, distraction can be the biggest like hurdle, is when you try to have your hand in too many things at the same time. And so for me, I have to constantly remind myself is like, again, what is worth my time? You know, what am I doing? What are the things I'm putting my time into that align with my long-term vision for myself, right? And being able to prioritize those things. Because I have my hands full with a lot of different things. And sometimes it's like, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? You know, and I have to kind of keep trying to center myself. So that's what I struggle with now, is just having a clear focus and sticking to it. This is where we're going for the next 10 years. And I know what that is. I feel like I'm living in my next 10 years. I'm just living in it now. Like everyone else is catching up to me, you know, but you know, staying consistent, not getting distracted, and removing anything that doesn't align with the long-term vision. Yeah.
No, that's so smart. And you know, I feel like every founder has almost ADHD when it comes to vision, right? We all think, oh, I like this, I could do this, I could do that, I could do this. Yeah. But then you end up diluting your focus, which is not great. That's great advice. What's one final advice you have to anyone who's watching you today, who's on the entrepreneurial journey, who's thinking, wow, she's achieved so much. What can I learn from her in order to have that level of success?
I think my story is one of betting on yourself. And I know a lot of people say like, you know, be yourself, do this, do that. But you need to take the time to figure out like, where am I going? You don't need to have the full answer, by the way. You just need to know what's the first step. And then you need to bet on yourself, and you need to keep betting on yourself, you know, and ultimately, as you start to do that, the doors start to open. But you have to take that first step, and you have to be committed to staying on that path, because again, there's so many distractions, and failure can also be a distraction, right? Because sometimes you fail and you think like, oh, this is it, you know? For example, my company Ready Hub, for years, we were just barely making it. And then there's an inflection point. But if I told you years ago, like, yeah, we're gonna run a business that barely breaks even for 3 years, you would be like, girl, you're crazy. You know? And that's how like the tech world is, you know? And so you have to have that, you have to absolutely bet on yourself and have that vision and continue to hold the vision. No matter what the circumstance, you have to hold the vision. And holding the vision doesn't mean that you're not flexible or adaptable. But it means that you have an idea of where you're going and you strongly believe in it and you're not going to let anything come in your way. So, for example, even though for 3 years we weren't making any money, we pivoted. We tried different things. The vision was still the same. We knew what we wanted to build, you know, as a software company, but we had to pivot to get there. And so that journey is really important, but it starts with betting on yourself and it ends with betting on yourself as well.
Yeah, that's so true. And you're right, because a lot of people think that keeping to it means being rigid, but it's not.
Yeah.
The journey there might change, but the North Star stays the same, right?
Exactly.
And now what's next for Chidi? What do we watch out for?
Oh, okay. So, you know, for me, I think the next decade, generational wealth is what I'm looking to build. And I think one of the ways I'm doing that is by building hotels. So I started my journey building a travel company, and, you know, naturally that has taken me to wanting to be more involved in the experiences that our customers have. And a big part of that is building hotels, designing the living experience that they get to have in those different destinations. And I'm excited to do more of that. I'm excited to deliver on our project in Morocco. I'm excited to work in Zanzibar to deliver another hotel and then take that across Africa. You know, I really want to be a part of the hospitality industry within Africa and defining what luxury hospitality looks like, you know, in that region. And so that's my next step, is like I am building the next generation of luxury boutique hotels. And it's just really exciting, you know, to be on that journey. So that's what my next chapter looks like. A whole lot of construction, design, luxury living, you know, but it's exciting.
But you see, when you talk about this, I see the spark in your eyes. I see the passion
I'm
for it.
so excited. Like, I feel like I'm on a new journey, you know, like, and again, it's like 6 years into running a business. And what I love about life is like you continue to reinvent yourself and you continue to find ways to, you know, grow. And this is that next growth path for me.
And I can't wait. I'm very excited.
Girl,
I can't wait to visit all the hotels.
Obviously,
I'm going to be there. You have to come to Mauritius as well.
Exactly.
Girl, we need to bring your hotel there. But thank you so much for being here, Chidi. And all Chidi's links will be in the description link below. Just go check her out. Say hello to Chidi as well. And thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me. This was amazing.
Thank you.